Welcome back, everybody. We're here at Swanson's machine shop today, taking apart this belt pulley shaft. We're going to press the bearing off the end of it there, then see if we can get the gear off of that end there, because if you remember, we got to figure out a way to fix that shaft to fit on the belt pulley. It's coming really easy. Yeah. It must be a little, is it just because it's just that worn, or is it actually stepped a little bit?
It's just stepped there.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay, just for our future notes, so we put the bearing back on the right way. The numbers on the bearing were towards the inside of the tractor.
It shouldn't matter.
Probably doesn't matter.
Just in case.
So now we're turning our attention to trying to remove the bevel gear off of the shaft, so we can take, basically, so it'll be a bare shaft, so we can fix the fit on the pulley end. We tried just pressing up against this gear, up against that gear to remove, the bevel gear and pulley off of the shaft as one assembly, but it didn't. It must be on there pretty good, because we had it loaded up pretty good and it wasn't making any movement. So we switched tactics here, and we're going to try to remove this bearing first, so that way if we need to apply some heat to this gear to remove it from the shaft, we can without damaging the bearing. Just so happens I was at the LeSueur swap meet this weekend, and I picked up a great big bearing splitter. And what did I do with it? Great big T-bar puller as well. Over here. I just got done dressing that up. Took all the little, because it's used and abused, but I took all the burrs off of it, and it'll be just fine. So that'll come in handy for removing the belt pulley on the other tractor. I'll need to get a new push screw, because this one's pretty well shot. The nut seems to be okay. This is for a different project. Disregard that. Maybe we'll show you that a different day. That's one of Dad's projects he's been working on. I also picked up, as long as we're showing goodies we picked up at the swap meet, I picked up some more body hammers. I was just wire wheeling some of them up this morning. Kind of got a thing for hammers. And, dolly, pretty abused, but I think we'll grind it up and smooth it up and turn it into something useful. Kind of planning ahead for when we start doing sheet metal work, fenders and hoods and gas tanks and whatever for tractors. I also picked up a half of a trammel point set. This one here. Got that all, it was all rusty, stuck, really bad shape, but I took it all apart and we cleaned it up, Dad and I, yesterday. And it just so happens that Dad had the other half of the set, the point half, with no pencil. So now we have a full set, so that worked out really well. The scrounge gods were happy, I think. So anyway, back to what I was talking about. I got the bearing splitter on here, and I've been tightening this up, and the bearing is coming off pretty easy, so that's fortunate. So I'm going to continue getting this off, and then we'll figure out our next step. Nice, bearing is loose. This T-bar puller is already paying off. I set it up here to pull the rest of the way off once I had it collapsed in as far as it can go on the splitter, and it came off really easy. The only reason I'm doing it in the press here is just because we already had it set up in the press, and to get it in there is kind of a pain, so I'm just working right here. So now I'll take this all apart, and we'll be good to go. There we go. Bearing is off. Just for future reference, the side with the writing on it, Fafner 314, was towards the end of the shaft. There's no writing. I don't think there's any writing on the back side. So now we can work on getting this gear off the shaft. Or something shorter. 2 propane torches, and we got her to move. And it popped, it scared us both. Gotta come up with a little extension to push it the rest of the way off, but yeah. So now that we got a bare shaft, we can figure out what we're going to do with this. As far as I know, the best option are either 1, remake the whole shaft, or 2, get this spray welded up and remachine it down to make it fit the belt pulley. But the problem is right now, I don't know any good places that do spray welding, because of course we're not set up to do that, at least not yet. I know nothing about that process. So if anybody out there knows a good place that it would be good to bring this to do that to, or if you have any other suggestions, let me know. I'd be that's one of the next steps we got to do is get this thing fixed. So welcome back to North Dakota. It was too nice of a day to work inside, so I've been out here putzing on the tractor out here in the yard. I got the brake lever off. This one's a little bit different. I could actually remove it. Either the casting must be different or they machined it up a little bit higher here, because I could actually get it out as an entire assembly. If you remember, I couldn't do that with the other tractor. So I got that off. The clutch handle is off, and the linkage. Something we're going to have to address. This hole, these threads are very much worn out with this pin where the clutch handle pivots on. I got the brake band off. That was a pain. There were lots of big wrenches and cheater pipes and band-aids involved. We got it. We won. Well, it was a pretty nice day. I was out here taking lugs off of this rear wheel, but now the rain clouds are blowing in and it's starting to rain, so I'm going to finish picking up tools here and go back in the shop and finish this another day. Well, I think we finally got all the parts rounded up and remachined and rebabbited to put the differential back together. Got all the parts final cleaned up here. I don't remember if I showed you these or not, but I got these back a while back from my friend Matt Folstead, and he rebabbited these for me and remachined them and trued up these surfaces. So everything is nice and tight like it should be now. Good job, Matt. Thanks for that, doing that for me. I appreciate it. I got some new bronze washers from McMaster-Carr, and Dad machined them up for me, turned them into the little thrust washers for these gears, because these were worn out and pitted, if you remember, embedded with steel particles. So we'll put new ones in there. That should work out really good. I guess I still have to round up some tapered pins, because one was bent on these, but we can at least start putting things together here, so that's exciting. Correction, these are not tapered pins. These ones are straight pins, I guess, for this. I was thinking we have those taper pins in the shifting fork rails. Then we'll have to get new ones in them as well. These are just straight ones. I still need to get some new ones, but just like I was hoping, that all went together very well. I just used a soft hammer to drive the pins in, because it was just a light press fit, nothing crazy there. I put some assembly grease on everything just to make sure everything is lubed for now until we get the transmission actually together and full of grease, oil. So the next thing I guess would be I gotta do some final cleanup on these gears, the bolts. I gotta get some pins made up. Don't let me forget to put those pins in before I put this together now. It's You guys, it's on you. Don't let me get ahead of myself. Like I said, I got those cleaned up. So once we get, like I said, the pins and a little bit more cleaning, we can finish putting this differential together for good, and hopefully everything is be right, and we can probably, I don't know if there's any reason why we can't actually put it into the case here then after that. Have to think about that. Maybe we'll leave it out for now just to have a little more access for dry fitting the other shafts and gears first, because that differential takes up so much space here, but we'll see. Okay, so I got all the gears final cleaned up. I got 3 new pins for these made up to replace the 3 old ones. Bolts and nuts are ready to go. I think we're good to put this differential together. I already showed you I got them cleaned up. Okay, working on differential again here. I got the outer gear put back on here. That fit on very nicely. Just tapped it on with the soft-faced hammer. I got the other, or the 1/2, put on the back of it there, just to kind of see how everything is fitting. Seems like things are maybe a little on the loose side, but that's how it was. Actually, it should be better because we have new washers. But I am wondering if I should have even more shims, because obviously the farther up that gear is, the more, or the less slop there's going to be. The farther back it is, the more. I'll probably get the other side on and kind of check it some more. Let me know what you think about that, if I should be shimming these farther or not. Made an interesting observation. So these flats on the washers coincide with the little steps in these plates here. That's what keeps those washers from spinning. But let's see if I could take this apart to show you, so that these go reference on that there. Well, this half, you can still see the old witness marks, where that's where the pin is. Those should be lined up with here, and they're not. This one is. See, the pin would line up with there. You can see the old ghost of where it was sitting there. So I'm assuming they should both be the same. So I'm guessing either this was apart at some point in its life and not put together correctly, or it never was put together correctly even from new, because you can clearly see where they weren't lined up on those where they should be. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, I did remember to put my pins in. 3 new pins. And I'm going to set this half on here and then throw some bolts on there and kind of check everything. And to my knowledge, I got all the parts back the same way they came off. 2 punch marks, 2 punch marks, 2. So everything, and that's the way it went in the tractor. 2 was on that side. 2, 1. So I think I got everything back together the way it came apart, with the exception of I corrected that plate. I located it the right orientation this time around, and I can check my little brass washers in there, and they should be, they all got a little bit of clearance, nothing is binding there, so the flats are perfect. I think we'll be okay. It's a good thing everything's on wheels around here, believe it or not, I had the cherry picker all the way over here to pick up that differential off the bench because it's heavy. There's no way I'm going to pick it up and put it in the transmission housing without getting hurt. Finagled it all the way back around. So I'm just about ready to lift it up and see if we can put it back in here. Wah, wah. That ain't gonna work. So I guess I'm gonna try to turn the transmission and housing around and we'll do it backwards, hopefully. Yay, that worked. So it's roughly in there. I'm not gonna commit to it yet because I gotta do a final cleanup of the bearing caps yet, and the nuts. Then I think before I put it in here for good, I'm going to give the whole inside of this housing one more final wipe down and clean. And then we'll start putting things together. Then I can put the caps on, we'll tighten them down, we'll see what kind of play and stuff there is there. And then we can tighten all these bolts up yet. Start checking play with everything. Make sure we're kind of happy with how everything is working. The only hesitation I have is those, like I was showing you, those spider gears to the bevel gears, if those should be any tighter or not. Let me know what you think about all that. I'm far from an expert, so I'm willing to listen to just about anybody's advice. But I think we'll probably wrap it up here for tonight because it's going on 11 o'clock and I'm having fun, but I know better than to work too late. Things often go off the rails if you push your luck. So we'll come out in the morning again, and maybe with any luck by the end of the weekend here, we'll actually have this in here. Because I have to think about it a little bit more. I think we could probably put this in here. I don't think there's any reason why we can't work around it. Yeah. So this morning I took it back out, differential back out. I gave the whole housing one more final clean. At a certain point, you just gotta admit that, okay, it's about as clean as it's ever gonna be. And I think we're pretty much to that point. I'm gonna put this differential back in now. I'm gonna final clean up those bearing caps. I just realized I haven't done that. And then we can bolt it down. I was looking in the parts book this morning because I was curious with those, like we were talking about, those spacers behind the spider gears. And the parts book does call for 2 different thickness of steel spacer washers to what I can only assume go behind those bronze washers. I'll put a picture up here. You guys can pause it and read that if you're interested. So, like I said, you can see those existed, but there was none of them in this housing. So there again, I'm kind of unsure what the setup procedure really should be. If I should be considering making up some of those washers to put in here to make the backlash better, or if I just run it the way it was, or I just don't know. Like I said, if you have any advice, I'm all ears. It sure would be nice if we had all 3 tractors broken down at this point to compare notes, but that just isn't the case right now. So I had to make a couple tiny adjustments where this fits into the bearing, like so. There was a tiny bit of excess babbitt that was not allowing this to fully seat down. So I just took my redneck scraper here in the form of a pair of scissors, sharp pair of scissors, and just scraped a little bit of that excess babbitt out of there. No big deal, just a minor adjustment. Beveled that inside again so there's no sharp corners. I did that with both sides, so now we can put it back together again. Okay, back together. I got just a tiny bit of lift on here now, so it's just kind of floating there. The caps are seated nicely into the bearings. We're approximately centered left to right. So I think we can finally set this down like so. And put the nuts on there. Tighten everything up and still spins nicely, and see how everything fits. Okay, I got all these bolts tightened up. I got these ones at least, kind of tightened up. I don't know how tight they really should be, because of course I don't have any torque specs or anything for this tractor. I'm just kind of going by common sense, kind of tight is tight type of thing. So the next couple of questions I got, or issues I have, is the cotter pin holes are too high on these studs. And I guess I could go back and maybe look at the video. I'm assuming they had to have been that way when I took it apart, but it doesn't seem hardly right to me. So the only fixes to that I can see is either putting washers underneath the nuts, or take it back apart and see if I could turn the studs farther down into the housing, which may involve taking them out and putting another couple of threads on them to go deeper. So something to think about and work on there. And then the other issue I've discovered, and I don't know if it's really a problem or not, but this gear is, remember, it's sandwiched in between these two plates, right? Well, I was assuming when everything was tight that should be tight, right? And it's really not. I can move that gear side to side 11 thousandths of an inch all the way around. So I don't know if that's something to be concerned about, or do I just run it and not worry about that, or what? Let me know what you think there. I'm not even sure what I could do about that, even if I wanted to fix it. I don't know if it's really a problem. It isn't going to go anywhere, but it is potentially, it is running loose then, so to speak. It can lock itself side to side, that 11 thousandths of an inch. So yeah, something to think about there. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that one. And there again, I'm kind of assuming it must have been that way, because I'm just putting everything back together, the way it was. Haven't changed anything as far as that goes. The bearings seem to be pretty good. There may be a little on the snug side, as far as, once you get it spinning and get that oil moving around, it spins all right. They're a little, I'll see, I've walked over, because there's nothing at the moment to keep that centered. From what I understand, the axle shafts is what does that. There, now we're back centered again. So I don't know, I'm hoping that's not too tight. I mean, it takes a little bit of force to get it to go, but I don't know. Let me know what you think there too. Granted, that's Babbitt, so once you run it a little bit, that'll kind of wear itself in a little bit, I guess, and loosen up a little bit over time, I would guess. I did take an oil can and squirt oil in there, so there is lube in there. It's not running dry or anything. Well, it was bothering me, so out it came again. I'm not happy until everything is 100% right, in my opinion, so it wasn't right, so I took it back apart. So I fixed the stud length on this side, took it apart, extracted the stud, and took my dies and put one more thread on them, and put it all back together, and now everything is good the way it should be. The cotter pins will actually be in the slot. They're about 3 1/8 before. Now they're about 3. So everything is right with the world there. I'm going to take these 2 out, do the same thing with this side. And then I think I'll probably take this back apart too and see if there's any reason for that gear to be, I mean, I can move it by hand. I'd feel a lot better if that was sandwiching tight. And take it back apart, see if there's something I missed. If there's a reason that isn't clamping tight. And if everything is clamping tight, you know, there isn't, say, a burr or something in there. I know that is the case, but if there's nothing I can do about that, then I'll probably consider making a shim to put in one side or the other to make sure everything is clamping tight. I think is part of the, we'll take it apart and we'll see what we got. Well, I just don't know. So I took the differential all apart here, checked everything over again, even took the gears out, put it together just to see by some dumb thing if, you know, if they were binding or something and not letting the whole thing seat together. No, that's not the case. Everything is tight to the center section. There's just, it's like it wasn't ever machined correctly from new, the best I can tell, because it's not as if anything is worn and sloppy, because I can still see all the original machine marks on everything, and there's no wear marks or anything like that. I kind of think it was just like that. It's strange. I have a hard time believing that. And I can't really put a shim in there very easily because it's stepped, right? To this, these end plates are stepped in. So that section touches that, and then just this little outer part here keeps the gear located. So it would have to be just a thin little shim. So cutting that out of like a metal shim stock would be pretty tricky. I don't even have any shim stock that wide. Suppose I can maybe get some. I'm wondering, would a gasket even do it? Just cut a thin gasket paper just to take up the slop. Would that be an appropriate fix? Just kind of thinking out loud here. I'm not sure what to do, but my gut just doesn't like the fact that that gear runs loose on there side to side. That just can't be right, can it? Let me know what you guys think. What should I do here? I'm not sure. Well, I think it's probably a little unorthodox, but I maybe solved the problem. So like I talked earlier, I figured I needed some type of a spacer in there, a shim. So I started looking around what I had around the house to do that, because I don't have any shim stock that big, and I even looked it up online, and finding any shim stock in coils that wide was pretty stupid expensive, because you need like 14 inches or so. So I started walking around the house with the calipers, because I knew I needed, so I checked it again with feeler gauges, and I needed about that 15 thou thickness. Once I checked it a little more closely, I said 11 earlier, but it was really a little bit bigger than that. So I started walking around with the caliper, and I had some gasket material. Of course, none of it was big enough, and it wasn't the right thickness anyway. So I started, you know, like cereal boxes. Well, that's about 20 thou. Well, getting closer. Then I came upon some tar paper, and that's about 15 thou, a little bit more. It kind of varies, but it's approximately 15 thou. And of course, the price is right. That's just leftover from garage remodel. So I go, well, what do I got to lose? I'm going to try it. Unless somebody out there knows something I don't, you know, if there's a really good reason why I really shouldn't use that, let me know. And of course, I'll redo it. But got out the scissors and compass and drew out because of course we took a couple attempts, because it's about a 3/16 inch wide gasket for around there. So it was a little tricky to cut out accurately and have it fit. So like I said, it took a couple attempts. But I got it all together now, and that takes all the play out of the gear. So that might just be a solution? Question mark? Let me know what you think. Am I way crazy for doing that? Is there a better way? Yeah, let me know what you think about that. I think for now I'm going to put it back in the tractor and continue fitting things. Well, we're gaining, but I feel like we're just kind of riding the struggle bus putting this differential back together. So I got all these bolts tight to the point where the cotter pin holes line up and I feel they're tight enough. Happy with all that. That gasket seems to be working. Like I said, unless somebody tells me something I don't know, I think that'll work. The next issue though is, so these bearing caps are only on there with the nuts just finger tight and everything spins nice and freely. Really happy there. The problem is when I go to tighten up those nuts, anything more than finger tight, this gets too hard to spin. Starts binding up. I suppose that bearing crushes just a little bit under tightening it up. I didn't expect that. I figured with as thick as that bearing shell was that would not be an issue. So I'm gonna have to talk with Matt Folstad and see what he recommends I do there. I'm kind of guessing the next thing would be maybe to get a hone, clamp them down, and then hone them just ever so slightly, just to open them up just a little bit. Because we're not talking much, like I said. It's just the difference of finger tight to actually tight. Because I'm assuming leaving them just finger tight with the cotter pin is probably not the way to do these. I don't know. So I'll have to do some asking around. And there again, if you got an opinion, leave a comment below there. Let me know. I'm learning. I'm no expert. I'm not scared to tackle this stuff, but I'm learning just like anybody else. So that's where we're at for this week. I think I'll probably wrap it up here. I thank y'all for watching. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do that. Be sure to share this with your friends. Be nice to grow the channel a little bit. Thanks for watching. See you later.